Hello everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern for our second episode on this fine Saturday afternoon. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. It's a lovely Saturday afternoon and looking forward to doing some things this afternoon, like going to see Gravity.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to talk about post-PC devices and etc. In this episode, sort of as a follow-up to what we were talking about the week before. But before we get into that, don't forget our website, FiSTchat.com. You can get all of our links there. You can subscribe to our audio via iTunes, SoundCloud and our RSS feeds, and our videos on YouTube, Vimeo and Digicosm TV. You can interact with us on Twitter, Google Plus and Facebook, so I'd love to hear from you there. We've got our ebook, The FiST Report, at fistreport.com, available on Amazon, only 99 cents, and helps to support the show. And we've got our supplementary content, the weekly blogs, photography on Instagram and Flickr. And if you think anyone's interested in our weekly discussions on film, science and technology, feel free to send them to our website. Now, post-PC devices or mobile devices, I'm going to include laptops and computers in this discussion for a reason I'll discuss in a moment. But we were discussing I think a week or so ago about are we in the post-PC era or not, and we're definitely on the way there. The thing that I wanted to raise though was this idea of the life cycle of these devices. Now, computers, for example, you would think you'd get quite a few years out of those, but it would seem that, especially in Apple's case, because they're sort of driving it, and it's a good example to look at. They're looking at devices only being, having a life cycle of about 2 years, and when you consider that they're not cheap devices, should it be that they are that expensive? I mean, I know obviously if they're expensive because it's good for their bottom line, but from a consumer point of view, it's not really that good that you have to go back every 2 years to go for another upgrade.
Well, it's interesting. I guess ultimately people will decide for themselves whether or not they'll buy these products every 2 years, and that will be the real test. But it's interesting how we've seen Apple really turn itself around in so many of these ways in the last few years. So you used to pay more for an Apple than you would a standard PC. But, you bought a Mac in those days, I remember, and you used to know you're going to have it for 5 or 6 years. Now, the very thought of paying that bit more for a Mac and then replacing it in 2 years' time just seems ridiculous. I don't know why I would do that unless they're going to, ensure that the machines break down.
So, that sort of goes towards another point I was thinking, is that from a hardware perspective, Apple sort of prides itself on making the best hardware and probably the most durable hardware. And I actually don't think you can argue with them on that. If, like, for example, my iPad that I bought last year, I would think from a hardware perspective that it could actually last quite a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if I could get 5 to 6 years out of it. However, it seems that from the software perspective, you can't keep upgrading. And if you were to upgrade it to say, for example, I don't think it's going to last to iOS 8 next year, which means that if I were to put iOS 8 on there, say if it was capable, it would probably cripple the device in some way. It's a little similar to how iOS 7 makes the iPhone 4 run very sluggishly. And if you can't keep up with the latest OS, then you can't keep up with the latest apps, and also making sure that the device works at its sort of top efficiency, so to speak. And in that respect, it's a bit pricey to have to keep forking out money for a new device just to keep up with that.
And I don't think Apple can get away with that anymore. When they were significantly better, my friends, used to buy cheaper PCs, and then you'd see them, they would have to upgrade them every 18 months because, there'd be a processor speed increase, and that would help run Windows a little bit better or whatever it was back then. You didn't have to worry about that with a Mac. But now, I quite like Windows 7. I quite like Windows 8. I'm quite comfortable working in that format. As we've pointed out many times before, the other alternatives, using Google Chrome as a browser, for instance, or any of Google Docs, not that they're that fantastic, but they're not bad and they're free.
Yeah.
There are alternatives now, and I just don't think that you can push computers through as quickly or push that life cycle as quickly as they can. I mean, phones, and this does come back to the whole Apple sealing down their devices, and you can't replace a battery anymore on your laptop, etc., etc. It's very disappointing, really, and I think ultimately people will vote, by choosing something cheaper that's just as good.
One thing I did want to mention is also competitors' tablets, namely if we focus on the Microsoft, there's the Surface tablets and also, the other brands that run Windows on their tablets and also the Android tablets. Now, obviously, they're cheaper. But just one example that I actually came into this week was I picked up a Samsung Galaxy Tab 3, the 8-inch tablet, and very, very nice. Like, it's a very nice from a hardware perspective. Obviously, everyone knows what I think of Android, but it was so good from a hardware perspective that I was willing to overlook that. Yeah. And if I did have a spare, I think it was about $330 to buy. If I had that spare, I'd probably pick it up to play with as an alternative device. Now, Apple's equivalent offering, because this was a 16 gig tablet, is the iPad mini, which is roughly the same size and was only about $30 more. Now, I'm not entirely sure how much that is across the board, but I did notice that, for example, the Surface tablets can be up to over $1,000.
Yeah.
So,
granted, though, that they are tablets, but they're almost laptops, really.
Yeah, that's true. But they're still in that kind of ballpark as to what Apple is charging. And so I don't know if the competitors have much to say in this area either. I'm sure there's obviously cheaper tablets that are being made, but whether they're as functional as the ones that are at that price point.
I think, once again, though, it's a bit like the phones, isn't it? The iPhone was way ahead in 2007, but by 2010, 2011, you start to have the other phones catch up to it. And I think it would be the same with tablets. I mean, give it, another 2 or 3 years, once they get the smaller processors up to speed, and once everyone's got a reasonably powerful CPU in there, then I don't think it's going to be an issue. The other thing that I find very interesting with the Apple sort of plan with this 2-year upgrade cycle would be, more and more, I thought we were going to move to, in the post-PC world, effectively tablets or just interfaces with the cloud. So you won't have a storage unit necessarily, which, as we know, Apple's taken out the optical drives, and if they could, they'd probably just force you to use the cloud for any storage as well. If all we're left with is with a screen and an interface and everything else is happening somewhere else, how much computing power do you need? What exactly, are you going to need to swap in that device? Because everything you'll be buying and using will be the cloud. So that'll be a very interesting development to see how that changes the game over the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, I don't know about you, Steve, but we both got the same iPad. I plan on using it for another couple of years at least. I don't want it to be a 2-year device by any means, but it is interesting, and there are people that do upgrade on a regular basis because they have the money to do so. But I'm just as a final point, I'm thinking that. It's not necessarily worth the outlay when you've got something functional right then and then. It's all about the marketing after that.
Yeah, exactly. And I personally think that it won't wash. If there are alternatives, whoever places themselves at the top of that tree will get undercut every time.
Absolutely. All right, we might move on to our news bites now. The film news bite, UTA CEO Jeremy Zimmer, studio film quality has suffered from Variety. Essentially what he's saying is spectacle-driven film franchises are going to decline, and there's going to be a renewed interest and investment in story-driven features, at least so he predicts. And a lot of that's, Hollywood has to blame over the last couple of decades, raising star salaries, spending more money on the effects, and, too much money is going out to talent and whatnot. I'm just wondering if the genie's out of the bottle on that one, whether you can really go backwards on something like that, or whether, it would take some sort of change in the industry model in order for kind of like the world that he's describing there to come back into fruition.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with you. Genie's out of the bottle. I don't know. I mean, there have been some changes. I mean, over the last 10 years, we've got less and less of the big star being reportedly paid a huge amount to make a film a success. I mean, that still happens, no doubt, but they're playing that down, trying to save money that way. And of course, somebody will come up with a game changer movie somehow, and that will revolutionise it. I think we're probably due for another, or maybe a whole brace of your Blair Witch style films that cost next to nothing, possibly are crowdsourced, and possibly are very popular. And I think that somebody just has to get a bit of success with that, and we'll see what happens. I think that will start to put a lot of pressure on the old Hollywood business model.
Perhaps films funded for streamed through the streamed off the cloud. Perhaps that might be a way to go.
That could well be.
All right, our science news bite from the ABC. Space graveyard reveals hints of Earth's fate. The shattered remains of a minor planet that once had abundant water has been found orbiting a distant dead star, providing a glimpse of our own planet's fate. The discovery represents the first evidence of a water-rich, rocky planetary body outside our solar system. And it's quite interesting. I think it just goes along, the further idea of discovery that we're learning more and more about what's up there. And also a sense of it's interesting that we can look out there, see something that's relatively far away, from our standards, and learn more about our own world.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think the harder we look in space, the more we see things that we know and we recognise. And this is amazing, This could be the Earth. It could be us on that planet looking at Earth. There will be other Earth-like planets out there. Whether or not we'll find them is a big question, but that there will be others out there. I read with interest, just to add to this, though, that there was one scientist who was theorising that diamond rain might occur in places like Saturn and Jupiter,
right.
Because of the conditions in the atmosphere. So it might rain diamonds on places like that. So maybe we can find a world like that then.
A bit of bling, huh? All right, and just quickly, our tech news bite. Why your face might appear in Google ads from CNN, and this is a little disturbing. Google recently updated its terms of service where Google Plus users' faces, names, and comments will be featured in ads. And the only thing I think that was kind of disturbing for me about this was that they switched it on and you have to go in and switch it off. It's like a default thing. Is this eventually? Are we going to question this at all, or what?
Well, I don't know. We're in a new world now where things are done in new ways, and Google seems to be able to do what they want. I don't know what else to say. Is it a bad thing? Well, it's probably not that good. Is it a really bad thing? No, it's not. But is it right? No, probably not. So,
you would think, I guess from one perspective, they have to switch it on in order to get it to happen, not because obviously most people won't switch it on. Yeah. But on the flip side, you would think that there should be some more maybe leeway in terms of, having a choice in the matter.
Well, that's right.
At least in the first place.
I guess the argument is that Google gives you all this stuff for free. So, but still, it does. I don't think it makes it right. But, once again, it's a bit like, talking about devices and should they last 2 years or not, or should they last longer. But, ultimately people will have to decide for themselves. But when you've got a monopoly like Google has, it's very, very difficult, isn't it? Like to know what to say about that.
Absolutely.
You can't criticise them.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, we're out of time. So thanks again for the chat.
Anytime, Ben. See you later, FiST Chat fans. Look for my face on Google.
Yeah, promoting something, right? All right, so that's it for this episode. So we'll catch you next time.